So before we get started, I just wanted to thank you guys because I just reached 1 million views, and it's just like I'm it's beyond words. I'm so thankful for you guys. Just thinking about me literally like making my first video and now having 1 million views on the channel, I feel the tension here. I feel like I'm just gonna cry, and I wanted to show my appreciation, and I'll be doing a giveaway for that, but I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, as for the giveaway, I'm just going to be giving away this mat. I think it's really cool. It's like pot of grease from Sleep Chief, so shout out to Sleep Chief. But yeah, if you wanna win this mat, just make sure to comment something on this video, and I'm so thankful, and I feel like I'm so hyped to make even more content, and it's like, thank you. So I appreciate you guys, and thank you for all the support. All right, so let's talk about being on a budget. I love doing these types of videos. I think it's just cool to like not spend a huge amount of money on a deck. So I want to bring forward a couple ideas about which decks you guys can play, and also not be afraid of them getting hit on the ban list, because that's obviously also approaching. So if you have any of your own ideas by the time you're done watching this video, make sure to let me know in the comments down below, and also so the people will know which cards they can pick up and the decks and all of that. So yeah, if you like the video, of course, make sure to like it as well. Give me a sub, ding the bell, and check out my other content. And for today's video, I just wanted to give you a couple ideas. I don't think these decks will necessarily be hit, but I do think that with the correct ban list, they can actually become better. So you might want to, go ahead and get a core right now so you can play it later when it's like better. I wanted to talk about Rika. This one is kind of weird maybe because like it can get hit, but I personally don't think it will. It's just a very cheap deck that you can get with post the tins. You can get the Therian package as well for very cheap, because they will probably get a reprint since the set was confirmed. So then the entire deck becomes really cheap, because right now the Therian package of course is a little more expensive. But I also wanted to mention it because with Jessica Robinson getting top 8 at Worlds, it also just goes to show that if you really grind the deck, whichever deck it may be, you can literally do well at any stage if you just put the time and effort into it. And Rika is one of those decks where you really need to be doing that. And yeah, if it doesn't get hit, it's just going to be a very decent combo deck. It might not be ideal in this format because there's a lot of hand traps running around, and it's not that easy for Rika to play through every single one and then like board breakers on top of it. But still, I think if you really learn the deck, you won't have any kind of major issues. The next one I wanted to mention, and probably like the best one and the coolest one on this list, obviously is going to be Branded Chimera. Like, the Chimera engine is so cheap. If you're not investing into that right now, I think you've made a mistake, because the second this becomes even better, cards might even go up. And I'm mainly talking about the fusion because everything else is literally like common and it's worth like a couple cents. But the fusion is around 10 euros or something like that. And it might go up if the deck really proves itself to be a worthy contender. It is amazing because if you pair it together with mostly branded stuff, then it's going to be really hard for your opponent to disrupt you, because they have to ash your Chimera side of things, and then they kind of have to ash your branded side of things as well. But usually the branded fusion is almost like a bait in this deck, because you really want your Chimera part to go through. So like, it's much easier to play through a couple things, and it is cheaper than the actual branded version because you don't need to play cards like Cartesia and the stuff that's a little more expensive right now. Now, another thing is the Chimera Tri-Brigade deck. I haven't looked into that much, but from what I've seen, people really like the version. And again, it's very cheap. So it's the perfect deck to put in today's video. Also, it hasn't been really, I guess, researched that much. So it's fairly new and people might get confused as to what to disrupt and what to do against you. So definitely a really cool engine if you just want to pick it up when it comes to Chimera. Also, Guardian Chimera received a reprint in Maze of Memories. So it's like 15 or 16 euros, which is much better than what it used to be. And you usually need about 1 or 2 copies in a deck. So yeah, you want to look into that as well. And for the next deck, I also wanted to mention Unchained. Now this one is not the most, like, it's not the cheapest one, because Abomination Prison actually had 2 printings if I'm not mistaken, but it's still expensive. Like, it's only from the mega pack in 2020. So right now, 3 years down the line, it became more expensive, obviously. But the good thing is that if you had your Unchained stuff from before, you don't really need to invest into that, and you can play a very, very decent deck that doesn't have a hard time going second with Kaijus and Kaiju Slumber and all of that. And you can play like really cool cards like Offerings to the Doomed and stuff like that. And I think personally the deck might be better post the ban list when some of the top contenders are like dealt with and then you can play that type of deck. But I think it's very nice because it made going first a little easier for the deck with the new support cards. You do need Pot of Prosperity usually because you want to have all of the consistency that you can get, but Pot of Prosperity is getting a reprint. It is going to be only in a couple months time, so it's not ideal, but if you pick up the core right now if you want, and if you maybe already have Prosperity, you can play the deck anyway. And if you don't, just wait for the reprint from the Rarity collection, get Prosperity, which is going to like be very useful for you in multiple different decks, and you can also play it in Unchained if you want. So yeah, I think it's a very decent contender, honestly. And another one that's also quite high if I would put the decks on the tier list, which I did, so you can watch that video if you want when you're done watching this one. But yeah, I put Infernoble quite high because I think it's a combo deck with a lot of potential, but maybe post the ban list when like Kashira gets hit, probably, and if, hopefully not, but if Dragon Link gets hit, this and Vanadium might be like the go-to combo decks, also Rika, so Infernoble will become better. But for right now, if you want to get the deck, everything is very, very cheap and you can literally play it for months because obviously like they're not gonna hit Infernoble. They dealt with Aurora Dawn, that's what they wanted to do, but that's pretty much it. And you can also look at the new support that's like indirectly for Infernoble from the Soul Burning Volcano. It's a rank 4, which basically searches a Fire Warrior, which like you have a bunch of Fire Warrior monsters. So yeah, if you want to play that, I've seen some people talk about incorporating this in their Infernoble strategies. So yeah, another deck with a lot of potential. Now, moving on to something else that maybe a little like controversial on this list is going to be Sprite Malfi, mainly because some people think that it's going to be hit. I personally think it might be hit, like the Sprite side of things, because it's been out for literally a year. It wasn't that long, but it was a year. And Sprite really dominated a ton of different formats, events with multiple different variants. So I think they will probably hit Sprite. But if you wanna like play it right now, if you manage to get the core for very, very cheap, or if you already own it, I think Sprite Malfi is a really good contender right now because you have a ton of space to play any kind of hand trap or tech card you want. And also like, it's probably not ideal to play Sprite Runic because Runic doesn't have enough space. So you can just switch to the other version, which is also much cheaper. Like Malfi stuff literally costs like nothing. And also like the Sprite, I guess, side of things is like only blue, probably the most expensive card, which is almost like picking up an Unchained core. It's literally like you can just decide whatever you want to do, because usually there's like one card that's a little more expensive and then everything else is very cheap. And another deck that functions very similarly is Tearlament. Also, the field spell is around like 20 plus euros. It did go up in price. I know it was like around 15 when Tier got hit. So if you maybe snatched up a couple copies when it was very low, good on you. You can play Tearlament, because the way I see it is Tier is not going to get hit, obviously. If anything, they're gonna start getting cards back. And with Tier, it's also really cool because you can incorporate so many different like strategies and engines in the deck. You can play stuff like Heroes and obviously polymerization with King of the Swamp and stuff like that, and Shadow stuff. Like the deck is just so versatile and manages to do a lot. And I don't think that it's going to be like, you know, a bad contender because Bestios are in the meta and Kashira is in the meta. We know all that, but Tier has been consistently performing quite well, and since it's not exactly, you know, on the list of getting hit in the future, I don't think it's a bad investment. And you can also just wait, and I've talked about this already, you can get the core, wait for the reprint, because the field spell is gonna get a reprint. They very purposely didn't put Power of the Elements in the Megatins because they want to push some other product with some of the very important reprints, at least in my opinion. So they will give Pelle Rhino a good treatment, I think. Give it a reprint, and then you can just get those copies later if you want. And for the last deck on this list, which is personally probably my favorite, like besides Chimera, because Chimera is just cool, but this last deck I actually play is Marincess. So I think Marincess is just a very, very cool contender because you have so much space for hand traps and anything you want to play. Like, you have variants with some of the Ice Jade support. You can play Cyanide Mining if you want. I don't think it's the greatest, like specifically the card, but my point is that you can pretty much play any kind of version you want. And when it comes to the tech cards, like, you have like 18 slots to just put in every single hand trap imaginable and like going second cards if you feel like it. And if you're trying to play Marincess not on a budget, if you want to invest into like higher rarities, and I'm not talking about Starlight, like if you want to play older print Marincess, you still spend less than 100 euros probably. So you can have like almost a blinked up deck, not just the reprints, and still play a very, very cheap deck. And I think it's like one of those decks where it's always going to be able to perform in a format where you need to play a ton of hand traps. And it's just so clean, you know, you have your engine, you go to your M board, you have the trap card, sometimes, you know, a monster with a negate, not every single time, and then a couple hand traps, you survive, and then you just sort of like control the game state to the point where you have enough advantage and follow up, because you have a very nice grind game if you play that way, where your opponent is just not going to be able to keep up with you. So it really rewards like good gameplay. A lot of decks on this list reward good gameplay. Also, a lot of times, because when they are sort of like a bit more roguish or like not the top contender of the meta, you kind of can't really afford to make mistakes, because sometimes the top decks in the meta are just going to like help carry you if you make a mistake. Not every single one, but sometimes because they are that OP, it's just going to sort of balance you out if you make a couple misplays. But with some of these decks over here, I think it's just like impeccable gameplay is really, really important. You just kind of gotta play clean. And yeah, I guess with that, we're gonna round up today's video. Hopefully I gave you a couple of ideas about decks that probably won't get hit. If anything, will receive reprints and will become even more budget, so you can pick them up and play them and not spend a ton of money. And yeah, if you like the video, of course, make sure to like it, sub, check out, you know, the comment section if people have any other ideas, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye.